can't do anything for us other than satisfy hunger. That is its only purpose. That is the only thing that it can do. Its only purpose is nutrition. And so when we start giving food emotional qualities, right, attaching emotion to it, we are giving it power. And it's just like we're releasing it from our heads and trying to put it on the food when the food has no power. It is what we think about the food. It's what we believe
Hmm.
about the
Hmm.
food. It is our feelings. It is the emotions that we attach to the food that have the power.
Welcome to the podcast, Michelle Petties. Michelle Petties, am I saying that correctly?
Pettis.
Pettis,
But
Michelle
but
Pettis.
generally, if you get a P, a T, and an S, I'll answer.
Well, I'm going to call you Michelle Pettis.
Okay.
So welcome, my friend. I'm excited to dive into this with you because you came to me out of the blue. You had sent an email to my assistant, if I remember correctly, that was, hey, I'm doing a TED talk about recovering from binge eating. Luis's work has helped me a lot understand this piece. Will he take a look at this, listen to it, give me any feedback? And I said, absolutely send it my way. He sent it my way. And it was so great. And I thought, I have zero feedback besides I love it. And and that I want to sit with you and get to know you. So the first thing I would say is, how would you want to introduce yourself to my audience right now?
Um. Wow. Wow. That is such a wonderful question, and the reason that I like that question is that over the course of this journey, since I really figured out how to lose weight and keep it off in 2019, it seems like every day I redefine myself. I
That's right.
discover I discover something new, and at first I really wanted the comfort of a box, but now what
Mm.
I realize is that I love the freedom of being any number of different things.
Oh,
So I would
yes.
so I would introduce myself, first of all, as a processed food addict in recovery, which is different than what I thought when I wrote my book, which was just a food addict, right? So I would cut myself as a food addict in recovery. I would say that I am a food story coach. I would say that I am a writer. I'm a memoirist. I write poetry. I perform spoken word. I am an advocate. I am an advocate for people reclaiming their health, getting knowledge, getting awareness, feeling, you know, I'm an advocate for defiance, of
Mm.
defying this toxic food culture that would have us eat in a way and pay more to
Mhm.
eat and consume in a way that destroys us rather than heals us.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I'm all of that. I can't say that I am one thing. I'm a speaker. I just did a TED talk. So we're gonna add all that into the mix. I'm gonna be whatever the moment needs me to be if I can help somebody heal and learn better.
Oh, I love you already. Woman after my own heart. Because when you say I cut the comfort of a box, love that. I talk so often about identity, the somatics of identity. And part of
Mm-hmm.
the somatic experience that's helpful of identity is it squishes you. It gives you this little box, and that can be really, that constriction can feel comforting. And then other
Mm-hmm.
times, the expansiveness of you can't name me, I'm endlessly changing, that can be really comforting. You have to kind of build your capacity to be many things at once. So
Yes.
it sounds like you've done that. I
Yes.
so I love, first of all, the clarification of processed food addict. That's very important to me. Before I even go into that, I just want to have a sense of what work of mine are you familiar with? How did you find me? Like, how does the somatic work I teach intersect your recovery work?
Yeah. So, Luis, it's interesting. I mean, this TED Talk has stretched me in so many ways. And it's not even just a TED Talk, it's just really changing my life, right? To be more
Mm.
conscious and be more aware. And that's really what learning how to manage food in a responsible, helpful way has taught me. So, I've spent more time in my life online, than I did in the past, learning this technology than I did in the past. And so once I figured out what I wanted to do with this talk,
Mhm.
it became important to me to start doing research to support it. Right. So it's like writing the book. When I just because I wrote a book doesn't mean people are going to read it.
Mhm.
The audience has got to find it, right? And I have to allow time for that. So people ask me, when I wrote the book, why did you write the book? Well, I wrote the book for me, but I published it for other people, and so
Mhm.
other people, it has to find its footing. So I feel the same way about the talk. That even before I did the talk, I wanted to get input. I wanted to get research. I wanted to have insight. I have my perspective, but the world is so much bigger than my perspective. And
Mhm.
so, I found you, by opening up my mind and like, looking for folk that I felt like that there was alignment and had been in the game certainly longer than I have been to lean on. It's something that I really wasn't used to doing. So I'm like super, and so you can imagine how excited I was when I got when I got a response because
Well, you got to you got to respond because what really got me with your TED Talk, and I mean you have this whole story of what I'll go into in a moment, but you talk about this moment for you, this kind of light bulb moment where you're talking to your uncle, right? You're like your favorite. You said your cool uncle, your favorite uncle, and the one that let you call him by his first name. Is that
right.
that's what made him cool. And what I love about that is you're talking to him and he's telling this whole story. He won't eat watermelon, first of all. You're like, why won't you eat watermelon? And he finally tells you, well, my brothers and I, we were younger, my friends and I, we broke in, we stole a watermelon. We want to do something thrilling and fun as young kids. My dad found out, he beat me, like severely beat me. And now he overcouples, he associates watermelon with pain, abuse, shame, all these things. And so his body won't even let him eat that anymore. There's a negative association or a negative overcoupling with that. And you realize, oh, mine's the opposite. My body has a positive association with food to the point where I'm chasing food to experience that comfort overcoupling or that joyful overcoupling. And when I heard
Yes.
you say that in your talk, that's what made me want to speak to you because I also am recovered from binge eating and I've worked with so many people that have. And the overcouplings with food, to me, is the real root of healing from food addiction. So let's
Yes.
just dive into that. Tell me about that
Yes.
for you.
Yes. Yes. So I didn't. That story rested in my spirit, Louise, for over 20 years. So when it happened, you know, I I didn't even make the connection. I didn't make it. Just was just something that kind of assaulted me in a way, right? I
Hmm.
didn't I didn't I didn't understand the real meaning of the story.
Hmm.
And it was only when I had and I love this language, this over coupling thing. It was only when I had like reached rock bottom for yet another time that I I felt like, I have got to figure out what's going on. What
Hmm.
is what is happening here? Because I had gone to a doctor. I went to a doctor. I had this experience with pizza, and I kind of talk about that in my book. But anyway, that was when I was like, I can't continue to live like this. I
Wait, well, tell me
cannot.
the experience. What happened that said I can't continue this anymore with pizza?
So
If you want to
all
share.
right. So I had been on a journey, and I had been losing weight, and I had been doing pretty good, and some things had changed in my life, and I had surgery. I didn't have bariatric surgery, but I had what I said way too many rounds of liposuction. And I had
Mm-hmm.
said to myself, if I get this liposuction, if I can get down to a 14, if I can just get to a 14, what I call a black woman's 10, if
Hmm.
I can get to a
That's
14,
right.
I can maintain it,
Hmm.
right? And I had for a while, but then things were happening that were unconsciously happening, and I was responding to them, and I was gaining the weight back, but I was in denial about gaining the weight back. I could
Hmm.
see in the mirror that my clothes were a little tighter, my arms were a little bigger, but I was still squeezing into the clothes
Hmm.
and calling myself a 14, even though it really wasn't. And I went to a conference, and I had been at the same time I had been going to a doctor who said, I can really help you with this. I'm like, no, 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 you don't have to do that. Just give me the skin tightening. Just let me lay here under the lasers and do that stuff, and I'm good, right? And so I went to a conference, and at this conference, I ate way too many pieces of pizza in way too short a period of time. So it might have been 5 pieces of pizza in 5 minutes. It was
Hmm.
something like that. And I couldn't, I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't even understand what is going on? I left that conference. I went straight to the doctor's office and I was like, help me. I'm ready.
Mhm.
And fortunately, she didn't have any other patients at that time, right? And so she brought me in and she started asking, she must have asked me 2,000 questions. Well, it wasn't really 2,000, but it was a bunch of them, right? And just about my life, my lifestyle. And she said, okay, I can help you. But here, I have a plan for you. I want you to follow this plan. If you follow this plan, you will lose weight. And I believed her. I knew I could do it. I mean, I had been on diets, low calorie diets before and lost weight, but I was never able to keep it off.
Mhm.
So I took the little diet sheet, just like she said. I followed the plan and I was losing weight. But in the process of that, I looked at that sheet and I just said, I looked at it differently. And I said, this has got to be the last time. I need to understand. I need to understand what I've not been able to understand before. And I just kind of like let it rest.
Mhm.
And she had said to me, if you follow this plan, you will not be hungry. You will not be hungry. You will lose weight. And it was like a low calorie protein vegetable. That was like it. So I'm following it. I'm losing weight. I'm doing good. And then, Luis, there came a time when I wanted to eat something that was outside of that plan.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I stopped myself and said, I'm not hungry. I know I'm not hungry. Why do I want to eat now? What is going on? And I had really never, ever in 60 years of living asked myself that question. It had never come up. And I just read something a while back that said, the quality of your life improves as the quality of your questions improve.
Mhm.
And that is
Mhm.
sort of a quest for me. So I'm thinking, why do I want to eat now? I'm not hungry. I'm not hungry. I'm not, what is it?
I just want to say that back to you. I love that. The quality of your life improves when the quality of your questions improve. That's really, really
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. Okay.
And it
Yeah.
and I feel it every day, right? I
Yeah, I
feel
feel
it
that
every
too.
day, right? What do you want? What do you really want? What's really happening here? Well, what's really happening beyond that? Why, all of that. So
So there was this moment of questioning what's underneath my craving, what's underneath my hunger.
yes, yes. Why do I want to eat this now? What is going
Yeah.
on? And so as I was thinking about that question, is that my the story, my uncle's story just showed up in my spirit.
Hmm.
And as I remembered that story, that's when I got this crystal clear moment of clarity that my uncle didn't eat because of the emotion, because of the memory, because of the experience that he attached to the food. And when I flipped it, the moment that I flipped that understanding in my head was when my life changed.
Hmm.
It is when my life changed. And and I was like, oh my God, that is it. And it's not just me, it is for everybody. We all have these associations that we attach to everything, including food. And
That's right.
sometimes these attachments, this overcoupling as you're talking about, sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's subconscious, sometimes it's unconscious.
That's right.
If someone says, I don't eat crabs because I'm allergic to it, and I'm allergic to it, my throat will swell up, then I'll die. Right? That is a conscious food
Hmm.
story. Very,
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm allergic to peanuts, and you can control that. But and what that also told me is that if you make up a story that is compelling enough, you can stop a behavior in an instant. In an instant, you can stop it. But but the consequences have to be strong enough. You have to
Hmm.
create
Hmm.
a narrative that is more powerful than the desire to do the thing. And
So
most
let's pause there. This is
okay,
all you there's a lot in it. The part that I'm loving here is when you talk about the subconscious and the unconscious, right? And the conscious is there too. But that
mm-hmm,
subconscious and that unconscious is why I love somatic psychology so much, because it's all about sensations, which are subconscious. The
mm-hmm,
subconscious happens beneath what you know. That's what I guess the definition of subconscious, beneath knowing or under knowing. So if we
mm-hmm,
know up here with our minds and our brains, then underneath is where all this subconscious material lies. So when you say to me, oh, I'm eating this pizza because I want to feel joy. We don't consciously know we're eating pizza to feel joy. It's a
no,
subconscious somatic experience. So
mm-hmm,
what happened for you when you suddenly made the subconscious conscious? What happened in your body, your life? Like what did that
yes,
take? Where did that take
yes,
you?
yes, yes. So here, let me for a second go to the phrase emotional eating.
Hmm.
All right. We hear this all the time. I'm an emotional eater. I'm an emotional eater. Or emotional eater. Where the reality and the truth is that we are all emotional
That's right.
eaters. every behavior we have is rooted in some sort of emotion. We're all emotional eaters. So, and at the root of, even for the people that don't overeat for the wrong emotional reason, is the root of it. If I don't eat this, I need food to live. If I don't eat it, I'm going to die. So there's fear, right? So that's but 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 when you look at this phrase emotional eating, and I call it emotional overeating, right? That gets us in trouble, not the eating itself.
Yes,
And I
yes.
I put it on top of relationship with food. And I'm
Hmm.
going to get to what you're talking about. So the relationship with food is a phrase I never use. I, I and 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 the reason, and I used to before I had a different kind of consciousness, is that food is inanimate.
Hmm.
And we can't have relationships with that which is an animal. Food can't do anything for us other than satisfy hunger. That is its only purpose. That is the only thing that it can do. Its only purpose is nutrition. And so when we start giving food emotional qualities, right, attaching emotion to it, we are giving it power. And it's just like we're releasing it from our heads and trying to put it on the food when the food has no power. It is what we think about the food. It's what we believe
Hmm.
about the
Hmm.
food. It is our feelings. It is the emotions that we attach to the food that have the power. And so whenever someone says, "Oh, my relationship with food," they never say it from a place of empowerment. They always say it from a place of victimization. And so, as soon as there's so much power in our language and how we use words, as soon as you start saying, "What, I don't have a relationship with food. Food doesn't have a relationship with me. Food can't do anything for me. What I have is food management mastery. What I have is food management skill. What I have is emotion management skill." And so when you're able to identify that this thing that I'm feeling in my stomach, it is not hunger, this twinge that shows up
Hmm.
whenever I'm frustrated, right?
Hmm.
Whenever I'm
Hmm.
angry, whenever I'm sad, whenever I'm lonely, whenever I'm excited, that twinge that I feel in my stomach isn't hunger. It is that other thing. But because we're so used to using food to in conjunction with these things, the food gets the credit.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
food gets the credit, and we don't know how to separate it. So what we have to consciously do, what we have to work on is, and this is what I do when I'm coaching people. I like, okay, this week we're going to work on this emotion, right? What where does anger show up in your body? How do you know your anger? When are you angry? Who makes you angry? So if you can recognize it, if you can recognize it as anger, then you know it's not hunger. And if you
Hmm.
can recognize it as anger and separate it, then you can develop the tools and the skill to deal with the anger. And if you're able to do that and mitigate that and minimize that, then the desire to eat that goes along with it goes away because you have dealt with the real issue, which is the anger. But
That's right. That's
happens
right.
what happens is that because we are conditioned in this society to think that food can do that which it cannot do, which is solve some sort of emotional stuff, right? Then every when we feel this stuff in our stomach and our body that just says, "Oh, I think I want a what or something," right? And we don't know that it's not hunger, and then we go eat. Then the need to deal with the anger, the frustration, the stress, the loneliness, the boredom, all that goes unmet, and it just stays in us as discomfort. And we continue to try to eat to get the food to do that which it can never do. It just covers it up, and it stays there, creating more pain and discomfort until we figure out how to break the cycle.
Spot on. I want to speak to that piece right there because that cycle comes in. So when you say this piece about we're taught or we believe that food can, let's say, take care of us emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
it's like food temporarily soothes or numbs out or depresses certain emotions, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't actually deal with, like you said, it doesn't deal with the emotion. And I find that fascinating because when I started studying the relationship between biochemistry and nutrition, I also had this similar light bulb moment of, oh, the pizza, let's say, is softening the grief I have temporarily. Like it's almost like
Mm-hmm.
soundproof, right? Between feeling or hearing my own thoughts or feelings inside of my body, my own needs. There's a
Mm-hmm.
soundproof between the emotion and me relating to it myself. What's amazing is once the food metabolizes, you're right back where you were emotionally.
Yes.
So when we think of like a binging cycle, what we're really talking about is you eat something that does its job to weigh you down or stimulate you. If I think of
Mm-hmm.
coffee, I think of like people who are addicted to stimulating foods, or skipping meals can be stimulating, but sugars, those kind of things. So you can be addicted, or you can be, let's say, dependent on foods that depress your system or
Mhm.
stimulate it, because either way, it's helping you kind of, like you say, manage an emotion, but you're not relating to the emotion yet. So
Mhm.
once that food metabolizes you right back to where you were, and then you need something again to help remediate that. So that cycle comes because it never really truly remediates the emotion. It's still waiting to be met by you. So when I think about you learning, navigating this piece about, oh, I ate for pleasure, for happiness, for joy, that where my mind goes, and correct me if I'm wrong, is when you start noticing that within you, like that subconscious connection to food, then you realize, oh, I need to find happiness and joy and pleasure elsewhere. Like food can't be my only option. So tell me what that looked like. Like, how did you, first of all, you're shaking your head, so you agree with that. Where did that go for you? How did that change your life?
Yeah, yes, yes. Oh man, oh man. I just in some ways I can't even explain. I mean,
Yeah.
this it is such joy to be conscious.
Mm,
It is such joy to be in consciousness. But if you've never had it, you don't know what you're missing.
that's
Right? Like I
right.
said, when you're getting glasses and seeing clearly for the first time, if you're in a fog, you don't know you're in a fog
That's right.
until you have something to compare it to. So I want to go back to I want to talk about that.
Hmm.
My life kind of now in consciousness, but I want to go back to something earlier about how we start making the connections to food and emotions, and how early it can start
Hmm.
and how it starts. So the other night I was at a basketball game. I was at a basketball game with some friends, and a coach came up with his little daughter. His little baby daughter looked like she might have been 2 or 3 years old. And he's holding her, she's holding on to him, but he's got to leave her and go coach the basketball game.
Hmm.
But she's holding on to him for dear life. But he wants to leave her with a trusted friend. And so he talks her through it and says, "Okay, I'll be right down there in the court. Are you okay with going with Miss Deborah?" And she nods her head reluctantly, but she's
Hmm.
cool with it.
Hmm.
She goes. I mean, she's not crying. She's not upset. She's not anything. She's probably a little sad, but she's like,
Hmm.
"Okay, I get it. Daddy got to work. I'll see him from here. I'll be sitting here with Miss Deborah." And so as he's giving her to Miss Deborah, and he gives her the backpack, then he says, "Well, sweetie, would you like some a little it was a little packet of something. It was a juice bar or applesauce or a snack bar. It was something foodie that she liked. Would you like that? Would you like this?" And she said yes. And so now she's going on down the way. And so he's giving a little stack, and Miss Deborah, and she's like, "Would you like thing, your thing now, whatever it is?" And she nods her head and she eats it. And I looked at it and I thought,
Hmm.
this is where it starts.
That's right.
It starts right here. And it starts not even with her, but with the father,
Mm.
because he felt some discomfort and some pain with leaving her with
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
person, because he
Hmm.
knew she didn't want to go. Not really. Even though she was kind of cool with she
Hmm.
no, he didn't he saw this as this separation, not as a teaching moment for her to grow up and be dependent. He saw it as him like abandoning her and leaving her. But and to make himself feel better, like I'm not a bad dad, right?
Hmm.
Going to work, do a job, right? My giving her this thing that I know she likes, that is going to give her some pleasure, makes me feel better about leaving her.
Hmm. Hey, my friends. I created a space that is affordable, accessible, and anyone is allowed to join anytime, and it's called the Library Membership. The Library Membership is an online private platform that hosts dozens of my webinars, my somatic practices, private mini lectures, and movement practices. There's also a monthly sound healing, and you'll be invited to a weekly Tuesday live mini practice with me and other participants. You'll also be invited to be a live audience member in our monthly HLN team podcast recordings, where you'll take place in the Q&A that happens off air after the episode is filmed. For more information on this membership, click on the link below, or go to holisticlifenavigation.com and click on membership and then library. You can join right now, and you can cancel or pause your subscription at any time. I look forward to seeing you in there.
So he goes on about her way. And now, and she didn't even, the little girl didn't even say, well, let me have a snack bar. She didn't ask the lady, can I have a snack bar? She would have been perfectly fine sitting there without her snack bar if the adults hadn't put the snack
Hmm.
thing on her.
Hmm. Hmm.
But now, depending on how traumatizing that really is, right? Or what else may happen, there's this coupling with
Hmm.
with
Hmm.
daddy
That's
leaving
right.
and me eating something to make me feel better because the
That's right.
adults say that's what I should do.
Like what I would get from a hug, what I would get from sitting with dad, what I would get from feeling comfortable, I'm getting from the snack bar.
Yeah.
And what's good about this example, if we think of a 2 or 3 year old, this stuff's pre-verbal and it's even before memory. And I teach this exact piece around breastfeeding, like when you're born and you're screaming and you're crying, and the first thing that calms your body down and comforts you and gives you a sense of, pleasure and even a sense of you have survived is
Mm-hmm.
breast milk, is formula. It's like your body starts settling. So it's
Mm-hmm.
it's such an old overcoupling of the body of comfort equaling food for many reasons. One reason is, like you said in the beginning, survival. Like literally, it means I will survive. So there's like an
Mm-hmm.
emotional attachment to,
Mm-hmm.
I want to live. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's this much deeper one, which is the relational piece. Like, what relationship do I get from food that replaces my relationship with other people and even my relationship to myself?
Yes, yes, yes. It is like the pizza, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think about it like this, and I'm a little far removed from it, and I don't even have kids, but I've been a kid and I've been around people with kids, so I'm gonna use this example. So you got a team, a hockey
Mhm.
team or whatever kind of team you got, and we won the game. Oh, we won the game! Yay! 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 We won the game. Let's go out and have pizza because we're gonna celebrate. Yes, we go out and have pizza and we're celebrating because we're the best baseball players out there. Oh man, we lost the game. Oh, would y'all feel better if we went to have some pizza? Let's go have some pizza. That'll make you feel better. And so I think about this. What if instead of that, when you lose the game, the coach brings the team together, and we have just like this moment where the coach just supports them without
That's
food.
right.
You
That's right.
guys played your heart out, you did your best, and sometimes that's just how life goes. They weren't necessarily better. All you can do, I'm proud of you. I'm gonna always be proud of you. You look good, you smell good. I mean, whatever you
Right.
want to say.
Right, right.
So and what you need is you just need to be when this stuff like that happens, you just need to be poured into emotionally.
Yes.
You need the
Yes.
conversation, you need the connection, you need the support. But here's what happens: a lot of times adults don't have the words. They don't have the words. We don't have the. And one of the questions I ask: when have you used food to speak for you when you
Hmm.
can't speak for yourself?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. And so in this way, it
Instead of
dumbs us
saying I'm
down.
sad, I buy a box of cookies. That's what you mean.
Right. It dumbs us down. It keeps us from connecting. It keeps us from having to find the words. It keeps us from having to dig into our own self for the emotion to be the support. And it disconnects us. And I'm not
Hmm.
saying that sometimes food can be a connector, but
Hmm.
when we
Hmm.
use food instead
Yeah,
of,
it's how we exactly intention and how it's used. That's right.
yes,
Well, it's interesting because I'm thinking of when you're saying about the we don't have words. I also believe we don't always have capacity, meaning not every adult can handle the pain of another child. Like I
yes.
think of when I was growing up, my mother, very wonderful mother, uh, very low capacity for my suffering or pain. So when I was in pain, the reflex was to go bake me cookies,
Hmm.
right? When I was in pain, I got bullied a lot in school. So when I came home crying or hating myself or feeling really bad about what happened, instead of just kind of like holding it, it was, let's get you a snack. And
Yes.
she didn't neglect me necessarily in that moment because she still sat with me. It was very sweet and would give me hugs.
Hmm.
But I started having an overcoupling created of,
Hmm.
oh, when I'm
Hmm.
sad and feeling alone, food is what's going to kind of mend me. Now, what's interesting about that is when the food is being used to remediate, let's say, sadness in this case, I'm not actually learning how to relate to my sadness, and I'm not actually being supported to let the sadness move through me. The food just kind of pauses me from
Yes.
feeling it. So the sadness goes nowhere, it just builds up over
Right.
time. And
Yes.
I find food, like especially how you brought in addiction, the word addiction, I find it so important to understand food as an addiction, not just like, oh, I'm a comfort eater, but seeing it as truly what it is. It's like a biochemical addiction. And
Hmm.
unlike hard drugs that are hard to find and expensive, food is everywhere. You know, you go to a
Hmm.
hospital, there's a vending machine with all your addictions right there for $1. And so
Which
it's so easy, right? Just to take that in when you already have the predisposition.
and that, Luis, that blows my mind. It
Yeah.
blows my
Yeah,
mind to
yeah.
go and go to a hospital, which is a place of healing,
Yeah, yeah.
and to see these machines with with a bunch of stuff in it that will send your health into decline
How
in a
about middle school and
hospital.
high school? I mean,
Right.
it shocks me when I see high school children having a whole, in America at least, a whole row of tasty cakes to choose from, and
Yes.
no vegetables, no salad bars. I mean, maybe some now, but when I was growing up, nothing like that. And I think it's fat. But when you said healing, it speaks to me about our cultural concept of healing, because in a lot of medical professions, if I think of even what you were going through, like with liposuction and laser work to get the skin to tighten, no one was actually trying to heal you of the addiction. They were trying just to cover up and remediate what was happening.
Hmm.
So a lot of
Hmm.
us see healing through the lens of let's just cover it up. And
Hmm.
that's what we do with food. We're not healing or tending to anything. We're just kind of blocking it.
Yes.
And to put it through a compassionate lens, because I've done it too, and you have, you do that because you don't know any other way,
Right.
right? You don't know what
Right.
else to do. So you don't
Right.
know how to sit with that pain or depression or angst. You
Right.
just or you don't know how to have joy other way. Like that's your source for that emotional delight in that
Hmm.
moment. So
Hmm.
I'm curious is for people listening, I'm going to go back to my question I asked you earlier.
Yes. How?
Like
How?
when you think specifically the joy, I think it's an important
Hmm.
one because
Hmm.
most people are like, oh yeah, when I'm sad, I eat. Not everyone connects, oh, I eat a lot because I'm looking for joy and pleasure.
Hmm.
So how did you create joy and pleasure in your life so pizza wasn't your
Yes.
only source? Like that
Okay.
I'm interested in.
Okay. All right. So, uh, a couple of things. So one of the things that that I talk about in my book is I grew up with my grandparents. I think I might have mentioned that, but I there's a story in the book that's called Words with Friends, and I talk about growing up in the segregated South in the 60s. And for a period of time, my grandmother did not have a car. She didn't know how to drive, but she eventually did get a car and learn how to drive. But she would walk to visit her friends.
Hmm.
And I would walk with her. Right, we'd walk over her town, and they would sit and they would laugh and talk, and food was never anywhere around.
Mm.
I mean, I distinctly remember, would you like a glass of water? Would you like a glass of tea? I mean, and that was it. It was all this eyeball to eyeball, belly to belly
Mm.
conversation, no food,
Nice.
right?
Yeah.
And there were some economic reasons around
Yeah.
that, right? But with the food being out of the way, it made room for this really authentic connection that they had with one
Mm.
another.
Like so I
So
hear sober connection, like nothing between me and you.
no,
We're just
right,
connected.
right,
Yeah.
authentic and sober. Yes,
Yeah.
love that. All right, I'm using that. I've never used that before, but
Use it.
I'm gonna use it again. All right, so I want to take that, and then I want to take I how I hang out now and hung out in the past with my friends, right? And being, being a working professional, working in entertainment, having resource and access to things. What are we going to do on the weekend? Well, why don't we go to brunch?
Mhm,
Oh, why don't we go to brunch?
mhm,
Let's
mhm.
go to the brunch that has the endless mimosas. Yes, let's do that one.
Let's do that. That's the one we want. That's right.
and so I remember a time, Luis, where I might go to four brunches
Mm,
over the course of a weekend.
mm,
With four different groups of people, a brunch in the morning brunch, an afternoon brunch on Saturday and Sunday, with endless mimosas and drinks at all four of those brunches. That was what I did, and it was being with my friends, but it was very definitely these all you can eat with
Like
this.
the friendship revolved around the food, it sounds like.
Absolutely, it evolved around the food, and that that was like that was my life on Saturday
Yeah,
and Sunday. Living for the weekend brunch because there was. I mean, it was that and what that meant. What it means to be able to brunch with my friends, or to be
hmm
able to say,
hmm
we're meeting for brunch, that we're going to this nice hotel. I was, I grew up in the segregated South on the other side
Absolutely.
of the tracks, and
Yeah,
so to be able to aspire to be able to go in these beautiful hotels now food starts meaning status, right?
that's
It
right.
starts meaning
That's right.
access. It starts meaning achievement. It starts meaning a whole bunch of things that I didn't grow up with, but now I feel like I've arrived because I can, you know,
We need
you
to
know,
pause there. I'm so glad you're saying that. Because because I come from two lineages of poverty. So both my grandparents, extreme poverty. We grew up poor and then got more middle class toward the end of it. But what's fascinating to me about this is we talk, my team in HLM, we talk a lot about how the word privilege is it's more nuanced than we think. And so when you think of it, and I can say this from my family, when I think about it, when you think about being underprivileged, like you were saying, like economically, yes, that's one underprivilege of not having the money. And interestingly enough, from that is a privilege of having connection. Where,
yes,
right? Whereas when you have the privilege of money, I find a lot of people lose the privilege of connection. Can you just tell me a bit about that based on that
yeah,
experience and your healing of
un,
this?
un, unless you lose it, right? Unless you are extremely conscious about preserving it.
Correct,
Right? You have to
correct.
be extremely conscious about preserving it. And back to the brunch thing and how things shifted, right? So what I found is that in order to be different, I had to do things differently. Things
hmm
had to change. I had to find my joy someplace else. Now that's not to say I won't go to brunch from time to time, but my
hmm
from
Yep,
time to
that's
time now,
different. It's different.
but the experience is different. So what I do now, what I find myself doing now all day long on Saturdays and Sundays is I play tennis. I got a whole different crew of people, right? It's a whole different kind of thing that we connect on a different way. We're
Mm-hmm.
doing things a little differently. So something has replaced it. I have found it, someplace else, but it was, I mean, it didn't automatically show up when
You
I
had to
when I
go
first
searching, I'm assuming, right? And find what
I
felt.
had I had I had to search for it, but then I had to make it happen. Because
Yeah.
when I first started playing tennis, I was not very good. Right. I didn't know how, but
Right. Right.
the balls were going over the fence. Nobody wanted to play with me. I couldn't find the cute tennis clothes to wear because I was too big. Right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, all of that.
Yeah.
But but while I was out there, I saw other people having fun.
Mm.
I saw and I knew that it could be for me if I stayed at it. So as I went through this really trying, ugly part of it, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm now it is I have played tennis all over the world now. Right, not for
Oh,
money or
wow.
anything like
Yeah.
that,
Just
right?
for
But
joy.
it is joy for me. If I can play tennis every day, that is a good day. But I had to go through this process of not being able to find tennis clothes to wear, people not being on my team,
hmm
hitting the ball
hmm
all over the fence. I had to go through all of that to get to this place of joy around playing tennis. No, and now
Yep. Yep.
and getting to the skill. So you have to here's the thing. Once you get mastery over something, once you get skill at something, that's when you find the joy.
That's
I
right.
mean, that's when you really, really find the joy. If like before when I was eating and I was overeating and I was yo-yo dieting and all of that, yeah, I was liking the food because it was sweet and all that. But if you had told me back then that Michelle, you're not going to want bread pudding. What you're going to want is some Brussels sprouts with the walnuts and some raisins, and you're going to
Oh,
like it
yeah.
a whole lot
I know
better.
that dish. Yep. Yep.
I think
Well,
you have lost your mind.
I'm laughing at this because I think the same thing. I think of myself, oh my gosh, I come home from a long, hard day of work or like some experience. All I want to do is sit down and have some beans, some broccoli, a little bit of fish. Like I want to really and that meal is, if I would have told myself back then when I would eat a whole pizza in 20 minutes and bags of chips and like half a liter, of Pepsi, like that was my normal lunch, my normal dinner. If I would have told myself, you're gonna come home and just want some beans and broccoli and salmon. I'm like, what? But it's because what you just said. You said something important that I want to kind of highlight. And I kind of agreed with you, and I want people to understand why I agree with you. When you said I forget exactly how you said it, but you said when you master something, when you find a new skill, right? This joy emerges. You really access this joy. And why I agree with that is because in my experience, the same thing. When you find a new skill and you find a comfort and a certain new level at it, and you get better at it, more of yourself emerges, like new parts of you emerge, right? And so the part of you, Michelle, who now loves playing tennis, is a whole new part of you that was never alive in this lifetime. It was subconscious. It was probably living under the mounds of pizza. And now without that being there, it's like a part of you gets to unfold. So you get more of yourself. So I find that when you start, and this goes for all addiction, but for food addiction in this case, when you start replacing the food with the same, let's say the same emotional satisfaction you get from the food with something else that's a connective thing, kind of like playing tennis with someone, you unfold a new part of yourself and you become much more whole. Right. Whereas you're so limited when you're just doing the same old familiar pattern of binging, those parts never get to come out and play.
Yes, yes,
That's
yes,
important to me.
yes, yes. Somebody interviewed me a while back on a podcast, and they said, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" And I said I didn't say it quite right because I didn't have the consciousness I have
Yeah,
now. I said obesity is a thief, and it's not the obesity that's a thief because the obesity is the resulting thing.
that's the result. That's right.
It is the addiction that is a thief. It robs you, right? It robs you of the
Yeah,
ability to fully experience yourself.
that's
And
right.
and the way, Luis, that we fully experience ourselves is by leaning into our emotions, whatever they are, knowing that they are valid, that our ability to kind of flow in and out emotions,
Hmm.
that's our humanness. That's what
Hmm.
connects us
Hmm.
to other
Hmm.
people. That's what connects us to ourselves. But we live in this culture that really that on some level makes us ashamed of our emotions, that wants us to hide from our emotions, that doesn't want us to process our emotions without us really, just when we get this really understand this real fundamental understanding that we're spirit beings, right? We're spirit
Hmm.
beings. There's other stuff too, but it is our emotions
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
ourself.
Hmm. Hmm.
How we process that, how
That's
we
right.
process
That's
all of
right.
those. It's that's our identity is in that, and
Well,
when
when you
we
say that, when you say it's ourself, what I get from that is it's the witnessing turns on. It's like when you say about consciousness, when let's say when I'm unable to witness my anger, when I'm unable to be conscious with my anger, it just takes over. But when I'm conscious with my anger, myself is there. Myself is witnessing the anger and able to help process and help and move. And you said something in your TED talk that I wrote down. You said living is moving to and from one emotional experience to another. And I love that because that's really all my work is teaching people tools to do that. To
Mhm.
how do I feel an emotional state, be with it, don't escape from it, be with the emotional state, let it move, and then the next one comes, and the next
Yes,
one comes, and it's ongoing.
yes,
It's never going to end.
yes,
Right.
yes.
So when you learn to mask the emotion, you are dependent and you will become addicted. And it is a thief because you're unable to even be with your experiences, right?
Right, right, right. That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. But is that's the journey. That's the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
That's the work. And when you lean into the work, you really get this understanding that it is not the food.
That's right.
Then you can put food in its proper place and put it into perspective, right?
That's right.
Um,
That's right. And I
so
love what you said something too. We have to close in 3 minutes. So
okay, okay.
we're gonna bring us in for now. But you said something too in your TED talk that I now eat to be nourished. And I just wanted people to hear that again because when you're eating to nourish your body instead of trying to medicate an emotion, it's a very different experience. And
Yes,
I
yes.
find when you nourish your body, you actually have more capacity to then be with the emotions. Whereas when you're just trying to remediate or soften emotions, you don't even learn how to be with them, and they get harder to experience.
Oh, that is so true. I was the other day I went to get get something to eat, and I got this little thing. It was a bar that had nuts and kind of stuff
Mhm.
in it, and so the person looked at me. She said, I've never had one of those before. Are they good?" And I said, "Yeah, they are good." But I thought to myself, I'm not eating it because it's good. I'm eating it because it's nourishing. But we are so
Mm-hmm.
conditioned in this
Hmm.
culture to make decisions about. Can we just get some T-shirts to say I'm a nutritional eater? I'm gonna can we start
I'll
can
wear
we
that shirt.
can we start reinforcing that? Can we start
Yeah.
teaching people
Yeah.
that's how to make a decision about what you're going to eat? Is it nutritious and is it safe? Let's add safe. Let's add safe first. Is it safe? Is it nutritious? Right? That because it is all jacked up. The only reason to eat is for nutrition, nourishment, and energy. Those are the only reasons to eat. Food is just fuel. But
Yeah. Yeah.
everything that we are taught in terms of making a decision, and I say this in the talk, is appearance, taste, smell, and pleasure.
Yeah.
Those things have nothing to do with nutrition. It is
And
it is such a complete disconnect.
I couldn't agree more. And I find this is a good thing for people listening to get a sense that they don't know how to tell the difference. If you're looking at a meal and it kind of bores you, it's usually a nutritional meal. And if you're looking at a meal and it like lights you up and you're really excited, it may not always be the nutritious one. But I say that with a little caveat because I heard you say earlier, and I still go to brunches, but not for a weekend. I, I have no issue in having pleasure with my food. Like I have no issue going out to eat and getting an amazing bowl of like sauteed Brussels sprouts that have like salt and spice and this wonderful decadent experience and are also nutritious. But I don't see an issue with that. My issue for myself and the people I've worked with and you, from what you've taught me, is when that's what you depend on, for a sense of joy, when you need that
Yes.
to get through life, that's when
Yes.
it becomes an addiction.
Yes.
That's where it limits you.
Yes.
But I
Yes.
love that piece about if you're eating for nutritious reasons, for in my experience, it's a bland experience because life is where you get all your color from. It's not just the
Yes.
food, right?
Yes.
Um,
So
we have to
so
close,
so
love. We have to
we do have to
close.
close now.
Oh yeah, I wish we didn't, but we do. I literally have another meeting right now.
Okay.
But hey, there you have a lot. You have a lot to say. You have a lot of wisdom, and we're gonna put links to you below so people can find your
Okay.
book, the TED Talk, and just let them know how they can work with you if they want to.
Oh, Luis, first of all, thank you. Thank you for holding space for this conversation, for this platform, for the work that you do. So grateful for you and so grateful to have found you and that we are in alignment. Just so
Mhm.
wonderful. But anybody who wants to reach out to me can reach out to me directly at Michelle, Michelle, at MichellePettis.com. MichellePetties.com. Or just Google me, right? My book is Leaving Large, leavinglarge.com. You can order directly from there. I'll sign it and send it to you. But I'm you can find me. I'm available. I want to connect with anybody. If anybody that is ready to reclaim their mind so they can reclaim their body, so they can reclaim their life. Any way I'll support in any way.
Michelle, thank you. Really, really appreciate it. Your energy is, I could just stare at you for hours because you're like a beautiful sight, but the energy is also so exciting. So thank you. Thank you for being you and for the courage to reach out. And I love that I was aligned with it and we connected. And now we have this to offer people. So thank you, my
Yes,
friend.
this has been wonderful. Reach out
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah, I would say more to come. Let's find each other again. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bye, love. That's the end of today's episode. Now let's take a moment to notice where we feel the episode in our bodies. Close your eyes. Take a breath. And let whatever wants to come up, come up. And remember, those sensations hold the wisdom that we're looking for. If you want to go deeper, visit holisticlifenavigation.com.